Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you're listening right now, you are definitely in the right place because today our mission is completely focused on unpacking the AD0-E563 exam.
Yeah, the Adobe Marketo Engage Architect certification.
Exactly. And for those of you operating at that enterprise tier of marketing automation, you know exactly what a beast this is. We're going to be exploring specific exam practice questions, diving deeply into their answers, and really uncovering the architectural why behind them.
Right, because that's the critical piece here. I mean, this isn't just a vocabulary test.
No, not at all.
Passing this exam requires demonstrating that you actually understand the downstream impact of your structural decisions across a highly integrated marketing stack.
And just to give you an overview of the source material we are working with today, this exam is it's an absolute heavyweight. It really reflects the complexity of the platform. The structure breaks down like this. Project leadership and change management makes up 10% of the test. Marketo data architecture design is 18%. Then you have the biggest chunk, which is Marketo campaign architecture design, coming in at 28%.
That's a huge portion.
It is. And then reporting and attribution makes up 20%. And finally, advanced Marketo governance is 24%. So it covers a massive amount of ground.
Okay, let's unpack this. How do we approach studying for a test that essentially asks you to map a living, breathing ecosystem?
Well, we approach it by looking at the technical realities and the trade-offs behind the questions. We are going to synthesize exactly why these answers make sense in a real-world enterprise-level context.
Which is what you're dealing with every day.
Exactly. It's about seeing the matrix of how all these systems communicate, how they scale, and frankly, how they eventually try to break under pressure if you don't design them defensively.
I love that phrase, defensive design.
Yeah.
So let's start with those foundational elements, diving into data architecture and system resilience, which represents that 18% of the exam. Let's tackle a scenario straight from the practice questions. Practice question 2. Let's do it.
So an enterprise needs to track one-to-many relationships. The classic example they give is a single person having multiple product registrations over time, and marketing needs to trigger specific renewal campaigns based on each unique purchase.
Right, a very common scenario.
Yeah. And a junior admin might default to just stringing together custom fields on the lead object for those multiple product registrations. But at the enterprise level, we know that's an architectural dead end. The exam points to custom objects as the correct answer here.
It does, and for a very specific reason regarding database performance.
Tell me more about that.
So, custom fields fundamentally flatten your data. If you try to force a one-to-many relationship into a flat table by creating, say, a product A field, product B field, and product C field,
you're just adding columns forever.
Exactly. You are creating massive technical debt, you bloat the lead record, and more importantly, you make your velocity reporting and dynamic triggering incredibly brittle.
Because the system has to work so hard to find anything.
Right. Custom objects are the correct answer because they provide a relational data model. They allow an infinite number of related records to be tied to a single person without expanding the width of the primary lead table.
Which means your segmentation engine doesn't have to scan across 50 redundant custom fields just to find out if someone bought a specific software license in Q3.
Exactly. You query the custom object directly.
It's building a system that expects exponential data growth rather than fighting against it. Let's look at another real-world architectural problem from the sources. This is practice question 6, and it deals with system limits.
Well, this is a good one.
Right. The scenario is this. During a massive CRM integration rollout, you observe that the sync is frequently hitting Marketo's concurrent API limits because of high-volume updates coming from external systems.
Happens all the time.
The exam suggests the best recommendation is to implement a middleware or a buffer.
What's fascinating here is the acknowledgement that the solution to a Marketo API bottleneck isn't actually configured inside Marketo.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah, it requires stepping outside the platform. When your API limits are being exceeded by high-volume, multi-threaded external updates, a middleware layer acts as traffic controller.
Okay.
It ingests the massive payload from the CRM or the external data warehouse, holds it in a queue, and then drips it into the marketing automation platform at a rate that the API can actually digest.
So you're essentially creating a queuing mechanism to protect the core processing engine.
That's exactly it.
Because if you just let those API spikes hit the system unmitigated, you aren't just failing to update a few records, you risk triggering cascading sync failures across the rest of the integrated stack.
Oh, everything falls apart.
The CRM sync goes down, your webinar integrations pause, and suddenly your routing rules are firing on completely stale data.
Precisely. You have to assume the data volume will eventually try to overwhelm the system, especially as the company scales or acquires new businesses.
Yeah, you have to build for tomorrow.
The exam wants to see that you understand that defensive design. You aren't just building pipelines, you are building the pressure valves that keep the pipelines from bursting.
That concept of defensive design actually bleeds right into how we handle governance, which is our next major section. Making up 24% of the exam, governance focuses heavily on security, privacy, and scale.
It's a huge topic right now.
Oh, massive. Protecting the system from data volume is one thing, but protecting it from strict international privacy laws requires an entirely different set of architectural walls. Here is a scenario dealing with GDPR. Practice question 1.
Okay.
An international enterprise needs to ensure that lead data visibility is strictly restricted so that European marketers can exclusively view and email European leads. The architectural feature required here, according to the answer key, is person partitions.
Right, and we need to be really clear about what a person partition actually is versus what a smart list or a role-based permission is.
Yeah, because people mix those up all the time.
They do. The exam distinguishes between superficial filtering and structural data isolation. Person partitions operate at the database level across different workspaces. They enforce data isolation by default.
So if a North American marketer searches for a European lead's email address in the database, it doesn't just say access denied. The system literally pretends that lead simply doesn't exist in their universe.
That is the exact mechanism. In multinational organizations facing severe regulatory scrutiny, administrators use person partitions to physically segregate the database.
It's like building separate bank vaults.
Exactly. It is an absolute requirement for GDPR compliance in the shared instance because it removes the possibility of human error. A marketer cannot accidentally email a list of leads they cannot mathematically query.
Now, that structural data isolation solves the compliance issue, but it introduces a massive operational challenge when you actually do want to share things.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to practice question 4. This addresses that exact tension in a multi-workspace environment. The requirement is that global compliance templates and brand assets must be shared across all regions, while local campaign assets remain private to regional teams. The exam points to utilizing the global folder and sharing settings to solve this.
It's the classic enterprise struggle, right? Global consistency versus local execution speed.
Yes.
If you don't use global folders, your alternative is cross-workspace cloning. And cloning a master template into 5 different regional workspaces means you now have 6 completely disconnected assets to manage.
Which sounds like a nightmare for the legal team.
It is. When the legal team inevitably changes the privacy policy, you have to manually track down and update 6 different templates.
Which introduces a massive surface area for compliance failures. Somebody is going to forget one.
Guaranteed.
So by using the global folder, the architect centralizes the master asset. The global team updates the template in one place, and that change instantly inherits down to every regional workspace utilizing it. The local teams still maintain their private folders for their bespoke regional campaigns, keeping their autonomy, but the foundational brand and legal layers are locked down and scalable.
And the exam heavily penalizes answers that suggest manual, repetitive workflows for enterprise problems. The global folder sharing model is the only answer that supports scalable, risk-averse asset governance.
Speaking of scalable asset governance, let's look at asset efficiency at the micro level with practice question 7. Anyone who has managed enterprise operations will feel the pain of this next scenario.
I'm bracing myself.
A marketing team needs to update a specific legal disclaimer, but they need to update it across 500 different active landing pages simultaneously.
Ouch.
Yeah. The correct architectural approach on the exam is to implement snippets for that disclaimer section.
Snippets are amazing. They're the ultimate realization of a tokenized architecture. Instead of hard-coding text into an HTML block on 500 separate pages, you insert a dynamic reference point. The snippet is the master record of that text.
It's like having a master broadcast switch for your content layer.
I like that analogy.
Instead of running to 500 different rooms to change a printed sign on the wall, you update the text once at the broadcast desk, and every single digital display in the building instantly renders the new legal text.
Which is brilliant.
It completely eliminates the manual labor of page-by-page editing.
Which is vital when dealing with rapid response compliance issues. If legal says a disclaimer must be changed immediately to avoid a fine, you cannot afford a 2-week sprint to manually edit and approve hundreds of landing pages.
No, the business will not accept that.
The exam tests your ability to anticipate these operational bottlenecks and implement reusable content components from day one.
All right, let's transition into the absolute largest portion of the AD0-E563 exam. Coming in at 28%, we have campaign architecture design.
The big one.
The big one. This section is where the static data and assets actually start moving. It's the lead journey. Let's talk about scoring models, lifecycle automation, and what happens when leads get stuck in the funnel. Let's look at practice question 5.
Oh.
Here is the scenario. A B2B organization is facing a major alignment crisis. The sales team is complaining that marketing is tossing over hot leads with scores of 150. But when sales reaches out, they realize the prospect hasn't actually engaged with any content in over 6 months.
I've heard this complaint so many times.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The exam asks what architectural change should be implemented in the scoring model to fix this, and the answer is a scoring decay program.
This touches on the most common trust killer between marketing and sales, the lazy lead problem.
The lazy lead.
Yeah. A behavioral score is a measure of intent, but intent has a half-life. If your scoring model only ever adds points, it acts as a permanent ledger of historical actions rather than a real-time indicator of current interest.
Right, because someone who downloaded something a year ago isn't hot today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A scoring decay program is a scheduled batch or trigger mechanism that systematically deducts points based on periods of total inactivity.
We've all been in that tense alignment meeting where sales brings up a lead who downloaded 10 white papers during the Obama administration, racked up a massive score, and then went totally dormant.
It's painful to watch.
If the system still flags them as a marketing qualified lead today, the platform loses all credibility.
Exactly. Without decay, your lead queue becomes polluted with false positives. Implementing a decay program ensures that the behavioral score accurately reflects the time value of engagement.
Makes sense.
The architecture must actively suppress dormant records so that the sales team's attention is strictly prioritized toward prospects demonstrating acute, recent intent.
It forces the system to require recency, not just volume. Now let's look at the other side of that coin with practice question 9. What happens when a lead actually does cross the threshold, goes to sales, but ultimately fails to convert?
The classic rejection.
Right. The sales rep logs a disqualification reason and changes the status to recycled. As the architect managing the lifecycle model, the exam asks what your responsibility is regarding these recycled leads. The correct action is to define automated triggers to move the lead back to a nurture stage.
This is all about maintaining strict funnel integrity. A lifecycle model is essentially a state machine. Every lead must exist in a defined state, and there must be clear, automated rules for how a lead transitions between those states.
They can't just be in limbo.
No. When a lead is marked as recycled, they cannot just sit in a static CRM view forever. They represent a massive sunk cost in acquisition dollars.
If you don't build the automation to pull them back, you've essentially created a black hole at the bottom of your funnel. The sales rep discards them, marketing doesn't know they've been discarded, and the prospect receives zero communication moving forward.
Which is a catastrophic failure of campaign architecture. The correct approach is to build listening campaigns that trigger the exact moment that status flips to recycled. The system must automatically strip the active sales ownership, reset the appropriate lifecycle flags, and immediately route that record into a specific re-engagement or nurture stream based on the disqualification reason.
So it's very targeted.
Yes. This continuous closed-loop architecture ensures that recycled leads are systematically warmed up until they demonstrate enough new intent to be requalified.
It's really the circulatory system of the database. Let's look at one more scenario in this campaign architecture section, practice question 10. And this one shifts from long-term nurturing to microsecond real-time action.
Okay.
The business requirement is that you need to trigger an immediate SMS message through a third-party provider the exact moment a lead reaches a critical engagement score. A standard 5-minute batch sync isn't going to cut it here.
Not at all.
The exam states the required feature is utilizing webhooks within a trigger campaign.
This question tests your understanding of API methodologies, specifically the difference between polling and event-driven architecture.
Break that down for us.
So, a standard CRM sync, or a batch process, operates on a poll model. The systems check in with each other every few minutes to see if anything changed. Hey, any updates? No.
Yeah,
Okay,
right, which takes time.
exactly. But for an immediate SMS, you cannot afford that latency. Webhooks flip the script to a push model.
Meaning the system doesn't wait to be asked. The very millisecond the behavioral score hits the threshold, the trigger campaign executes the webhook, firing a targeted JSON payload directly to the external SMS provider's API endpoint.
Precisely. It pushes the instruction outward in real time. This architecture is vital for time-sensitive external communications, like sending a dynamic access code via text or routing a highly qualified lead to a third-party dialing system before they even close the browser tab.
That's incredibly powerful.
Furthermore, using webhooks prevents you from bogging down your own system with constant polling queries just to check for a single score change. It is the most efficient, low-latency method for cross-platform triggering.
You hit the threshold, the payload fires, the text sends. That is the power of event-driven design. Okay, let's move into our final section, reporting and attribution, making up 20% of the exam.
The proof layer.
Exactly. This is the layer where you actually prove the financial value of the entire ecosystem you've just architected. Practice question 3 deals with configuring a revenue lifecycle model. It asks for the primary architectural difference between defining success stages versus operational stages.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is really about separating revenue milestones from background workflow mechanics.
Right.
In a revenue lifecycle model, your success stages must represent meaningful, measurable progression toward revenue. We are talking about critical transitions like a lead becoming a marketing qualified lead, an MQL converting into a sales accepted lead, and ultimately a closed-won opportunity.
Those are the stages that the CFO actually cares about. They represent the true velocity of the business.
Exactly. Defining these success stages correctly is what allows the platform's native Revenue Explorer to accurately calculate conversion rates and stage velocity.
Because if you get that wrong,
If you improperly tag an operational stage, like a temporary holding queue for data enrichment, as a success stage, you completely skew your velocity metrics.
you ruin the data.
You do. Operational stages are just the background gears turning. They manage data routing, but they do not represent a step forward in the buyer's journey. The exam tests your ability to mathematically model the true path to revenue without muddying the waters with system processes.
You have to isolate the signal from the noise to measure actual performance.
Well said.
Let's talk about attributing that performance. Here is practice question 8. You are architecting the reporting model for a complex B2B enterprise. The sales cycle is 9 months long. There is a buying committee of 6 different stakeholders, and they are interacting with dozens of marketing campaigns across multiple channels.
A very realistic mess.
Yes. The exam asks which attribution model provides the most accurate view of marketing's contribution to a closed-won opportunity. So what does this all mean for proving marketing's worth in a complex environment?
In an environment with a prolonged sales cycle and a multi-person buying committee, the only acceptable answer is multi-touch attribution, or MTA. The exam will heavily penalize relying on single-touch models in this scenario.
Because first-touch attribution gives 100% of the pipeline credit to the generic SEO blog post the intern clicked 9 months ago, completely ignoring the targeted executive dinners and personalized webinars that actually convinced the VP to sign the contract.
Exactly. And conversely, last-touch attribution gives all the credit to the final contact sales form, ignoring the 9 months of educational nurturing that built the brand trust in the first place.
Neither maps to reality.
Multi-touch attribution solves this by distributing revenue credit across the mathematical model of the entire journey. It tracks every touchpoint from every member of the buying committee and allocates fractional credit to all influencing campaigns. It provides a comprehensive, mathematically defensible view of how the cumulative marketing effort drove the revenue.
It's the only model that justifies the budget for those mid-funnel campaigns.
It really is.
And honestly, mapping a complex reality into a manageable, scalable model seems to be the overarching theme of this entire certification.
It absolutely is.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive into the AD0-E563 exam materials. We hope you are walking away with a much sharper architectural mindset, ready to tackle those practice questions and the real-world builds behind them. Keep optimizing, keep questioning the default settings, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.